160. He's gone.
What's up, guys? Today we're going to be starting on a new project, which is this guy, a 2003 Suzuki Hayabusa. And now I've never had one, but this bike has sat outside for about 6 years, and so it's going to need some cleanup. We're going to put the air filter box back on, clean up the fuel pump, clean up the fuel tank, get all the fuel injection stuff up and working again. But thankfully on starter fluid this thing cranked right over and fired up off the jump box. So that's always good. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to roll it out of the garage, get some compressed air, and just try to get as much shit off of it as I can. And then we can look into start getting some of these pieces back together, back on the bike. So we're over here right now at our parts cleaner, and what I did is I put the fuel pump in there, and I cleaned the outside of the pump, but that's good, but you really want to clean the inside of the pump. And so what we did is we hooked up a car battery here, and if you can see that right there, there's a nice steady stream coming out of the fuel pump. Now the issue is that the fuel pump pickup is right at the bottom, so this is kind of hard to show you guys, but you should be able to see that right in there that the fuel pump's working, and the stuff coming out of the fuel pump is nice and clean. So I'm going to let this run for probably like another 5 minutes just to make sure we got all the gunk out of it, and then this will actually be ready to go back into the gas tank. So there we go, the gas tank's done. Basically what I did was I knocked off all the rust on the inside by shaking a chain in there. Then just use the shop vac, vacuum it out, rinse it out with brake cleaner, vacuum that out. I had to put a new sealing ring in here. This is the fuel pump we cleaned out, so that's all ready to go. Then put this cover back in, put these bottom bracket back on. So now we are ready to put our fuel tank is ready to go back on. Obviously we need to do a few more things. I'm going to get this rump apart so I can get the seat off and figure out what's going on back here. But this is looking like it's ready to start coming back together as well. Alright, so we got the fuel pump back in. I got the battery on it. Cleaned up a few things, but now we're going to see if it'll start. So this bike's been sitting for 6 years. I got the choke on and the so now that we got all of the covers off, one of the important reasons when you're rebuilding a bike like this, sat a long time, to get everything stripped down, is because you find stuff like this. So this is our coolant reservoir, and you can see, well, I don't know if you can see or not, but it's cracked in several places right here and has absolutely no fluid in it. And for instance, if I tried to run this bike for a longer time, it would have overheated the bike and done some serious engine damage. So you know, when you take everything off and you start looking around, those are the sort of things that you find, and it's good to find that because we still got fluid in the radiator but none in the res. So we're going to have to replace that reservoir. I mean, it's a simple thing, 3 screws, but if you don't find it, you can do a lot of damage. Now, back over here, I have installed our new ignition module, and for that I had to take basically everything off, and then generally speaking, these won't fit without having to raise the triple a little bit. So you can see I undid these guys, and this guy right here, and I finally got that slid in and tightened in. So now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to put a lot of this back together, but the next step is we got to figure out what's going on, why the starter button doesn't work, and so hopefully now with all the wiring exposed we can kind of figure out if it's a short wire or what the deal is. But it also gives you an opportunity to clean everything up a little better. Obviously I haven't done that yet. We still need to do an oil change and flush all the brakes and stuff, but it's always a good idea to pull all the plastics off just to see what you're working with. Alright, now that the oil change, brakes flush, figure out what's going on with our relay. So generally speaking, the first thing you want to start with is cleaning out this with contact cleaner. A lot of times bikes sit, little critters like to live in there, blow all that shit out. So that didn't solve my problem, so I followed the harness down here and I was like, alright, well let's clean out this connection. So we did that. Then I pinged the green, it's always a green and yellow wire on Suzuki's that goes to the starter relay. So we pinged that here, and what I did was I tried to jump the relay. So basically, right, so that fires right up. So we know the relay itself works. However, if I disconnect, this is a ground. All this is supposed to do is go to ground. If I disconnect that from the ground of the battery, switch doesn't work. But if we reconnect this, all of a sudden it does work. So we know that the issue is here on the ground side, and so now we got to trace this wire back and figure out where it goes to. And if we can do that, we will just cut it and ground it manually. I've done that before. Sometimes there's a little piece of wire somewhere that's pinched or crimped or something, and you just take it and you solder on a piece and then you ground it, and it takes care of all your problems and doesn't really negatively affect anything because it's just the ground circuit to the bike chassis anyway. So quick walk around here. I got a new coolant overflow. I got new tires put on front and rear. I got a new battery in there. I got my my new brake on and tightened down. I think I might have found a small oil leak that we're going to have to address. But other than that, I think she's ready to get at least the nose and the tail back on. I'm going to leave the sides off for now in case I need to take care of that oil leak. But I'm excited. I think we're basically ready to ride the Busa. Alright, so we are pretty much done with the Busa project here. Last thing we got is it finally came in today. Down here, this right here is our stator cover. And as you can see, somebody JB welded it, and I don't know if it's gonna, there, I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not. But see this right here? That right there? That's fucking oil coming through the cover. And so unfortunately we had to drain all the oil we had just put in a week or so ago. Drain the oil, remove the cover, replace the cover. The nice thing about Suzuki's is any cast cover you can get from China, 30 bucks. Brand new cover right here, $30. A little bit of Permatex black to make the gasket with. But anyway, first we gotta drain the oil, and I'll show you guys the inside when I get it all off. But this is gonna be pretty much it for the boost. So there's a few little things, like I gotta replace the taillight bulb, and I gotta put new levers on that I won't have time to do in this video due to time constraints, but you will see them when I review this bike. So let's get to it. Alright, so here is the other one. You can see the JB weld cracked. There's another crack up here. All in all, this is junk. So when people do things like this, it's like, can you JB weld something like this? Yeah, you might be able to get away with it, but it's really not a great plan, especially considering the low cost and ease of access of this stuff. I mean, this came 3 days, $30, brand new cover, don't even stress it. You're going to be using gasket maker, but one thing you want to do is you want to make sure you pull these guys out, these dowels, and put them into the new cover. Sometimes they get left in the block, but most of the time you're going to have to just, and they just drop right in. There should be no effort on there. So what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to attach our stator here. Where is it? Like that. That's how it goes. And our crank sensor before we put on that stuff. What I'm doing right now is these castings are, like I said, I only paid $30 shipped for this, so the castings can be a little bit rough, so sometimes you have to run the bolts through them. The other thing you want to do is you want to take and put a drop of thread locker on each of these bolt holes, because believe me, this is not something that you want coming out while you're going down the road. So slip that back in there. You can see there's a groove right there where that tongue sits, and you can see the bolt holes because they have kind of little wear marks on them. That will end up going there. Push that in there. You want to make sure you don't forget this little metal plate that basically holds that wire out of the way. Cool. now what we're going to do is we're actually going to spray down, clean up the surface, get all the little oil and stuff off of it, and then cover it with our gasket maker, and then basically just attach it to the block and bolt it down and let it cure for a little bit before we fill this thing back up with oil. And so when you're done tightening, you don't really want like to go Superman on the thing. That's not really the point. What you want is see how there's a nice little bead right there? That's what you want to see coming out everywhere around the perimeter, because that lets you know that you put enough material and enough pressure on it to let it do its thing. So if I bring you guys down in here, you can see there's a nice little bead all the way around. And at this point, you just want to make sure you wipe this stuff off of the cover, because it's kind of a pain in the ass to get off after it's dry. But now we're just going to give this about 30 minutes to cure. And then we're going to be able to put the oil back in. In the meantime, I'm just going to clean things up, make sure you put the drain plug and stuff like that back in. But that's pretty much it for the Busa. So the Busa is done. I got a few other cosmetic things coming in, but you've seen me do them before, so I'm not worried about it. Basically, the filming deadline came and went, and I gotta get the set in for you guys. But I can't wait to get that stuff in and go do the writing review. I'm still waiting on the title and the paperwork and the registration so I can take it on the road. But I'm super excited. It's been a good project, and hopefully we'll make some paper on this one. Peace, guys.